Welcome to One Man, One Medication, One Motor Vehicle, One Road, 1 year. It has been 1 year since I started taking methylphenidate, and this video is quite a bit different from every single other video I've done about this series. This entire series is kind of a journal for me about my journey with methylphenidate. It's also advice for you if you ever wanted to try it, or if you are on your own journey with ADHD or other neurodiversities. This is going to be quite a different video because we are on a back road. We are on a gravel road. We're at Mary's Peak is where we started, and we are going to go all the way to the coast. You can drive down these back roads for 20 miles. It's actually farther than that if you want, but well, yeah, we're going to drive farther than that, but 20 plus miles. We're going to drive down these back roads. It's a gravel road. So this is twofold, maybe more than that. This is me doing the video One Man, One Medication, but it's also a tour of a gravel road in Oregon. So we're going to get, and I'm going to try and, it's going to probably take, according to Google, it's going to take about 45 minutes for us to get to the little town of Harlan, Oregon. And that is a very small town on this gravel roads back here, and you might be able to hear some banjos in that town for anybody. No, it's just a small town joke, and I'm sure that they're all very nice people there, and you might have to be a little bit more towards my age to know that reference. But I'm gonna keep on talking for as much of this trip as I can, for all these 45 minutes, and we're gonna get into some deep subjects. We're gonna get far off the deep end, and we're going to talk about cryptids and Bigfoot and Sasquatch, because we're in Bigfoot territory. We're going to talk about some Oregon mysteries, some stories about my life. Hopefully the squeaking of this old 2007 Lexus is not too much for us to deal with. This is going to be an interesting ride. So Oregon has some twisting, winding roads and some beautiful, thick woods. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about ADHD first. There we go. Squirrel. So my journey with ADHD, if we start from the beginning, you know, I didn't enjoy school very much. We could go all the way back, and I don't think I'm going to get real in depth with it, but we could go all the way back to some of my times in grade school and stuff like that. I did change school a little bit, and of course you got the grade school crushes. There's those, and if you have some of those, you can put them in the comments or something like that. But my experiences with ADHD did make some of school a little bit unpleasant. Some of my younger days with childhood are mostly pretty good. I do remember having some pretty bad nightmares as a child. I don't know if ADHD has anything to do with that. But if you've made it this far into the video with me, we might as well start getting to know, you might as well start getting to know me, and I guess I can get to know you if you want to put anything in the comments. It's kind of a one-sided conversation here, but I had nightmares as a kid. I do distinctly remember a lot of faces in the closet. I do distinctly remember dreams about specters or things trying to get me and stuff like that. And my parents gave me the usual well-natured treatment of them. You know, the typical no monsters under the bed or monsters in the closet type of thing. And we went to some churches, and some of the churches were, I think the churches might have made it worse, because they really talked about that evil demon. devils and types of things like that, and there were some superstitions, and there were some scare tactics they were tried to make you use. They used to try to make you to believe in God and stuff like that, or whatever, that bearded man in the sky that's there to watch you masturbate. Well, let's go back to ADHD. I don't know if all that stuff has anything to do with ADHD, but one of my friends just lately has been telling me how I kind of tap into the collective conscious, because I noticed that when I'm at a grocery store, especially its grocery stores are one of the worst places, and everybody's waiting in line, and just that whole waiting in line can be worse. And when the grocery store is really busy, and I feel like I'm going to get stuck in there, that can be pretty rough. It can be one of the worst experiences for me. I mean, it's not like I can't make it through it. I can do my shopping. It's all there. It's just like a micro panic attack. I like that phrase. I've talked about it in some of my other videos before. It's like a micro panic attack, and that's what I experience. Wow. Road's a little iffy here. Glad I got the SUV today. That's what I experience, waiting in that grocery store for the line, and it does just seem like there's a lot of tension, a lot of people, and maybe I do hear a lot of voices. I don't talk about like I'm literally hearing voices. They're not necessarily audible. I don't want people to think that I'm crazy or having some sort of a schizophrenic episode or anything like that. The voices are definitely all the way in my mind, but they do have different tones and personalities, and they are almost to that point of audible. I know they're not like real voices, but I can hear just a lot of chatter, and sometimes it's just like so much background noise, and you couldn't pick up on it. You couldn't tell what somebody's thinking. But occasionally, there will be. I just hit a good pothole back there. There will be some times when you'll hear a certain thought, and people call those intrusive thoughts or whatever. And I do get some of those intrusive thoughts, where they're just kind of a random thought that just seems so far out there, not like anything that I feel like I would think. And I've listened to and thought about all those things, like, you are not your thoughts. So those are comforting. And this is getting very deep and far along for my journey with methylphenidate. All these other videos, if you've watched them, have been like 4 minutes long, and this one's going to be quite long, partially just because this road is quite long. And I did have a bit of anxiety about coming out here. I mean, maybe it's just excitement. It's an adventure for sure. For somebody with ADHD, it can be hard to separate those two things, separate anxiety from excitement. Those feelings are very, very close to the same thing. But I will definitely say that the methylphenidate helps me out with that. It helps me to separate those two things, to separate anxiety from excitement. And there's a lot of times in my life when I've noticed that when I take the medication, I will feel a little bit less anxious, and the chatter will calm down sometimes. It'll calm down quite a bit, and that can be really helpful. It does definitely make it easier to focus. And there'll be a lot of times when I'll take the medication. That's the interesting thing. We'll go back to talking a little bit about the dose. So in the morning, I'll take a 10 milligram quick release, and then at noon or so, I'll take a slow release 10 milligrams. So that one really just kind of like trickles out there. It does release 3 milligrams because it's a 30-70 pill. So there's a lot of potholes right here. That will release like 3 milligrams, quickly, and then it'll kind of space out the rest of that. And I'm not really sure how that 1 milligram per hour is really doing much, but that's kind of what I'm riding on right now, because I took that one at noon. And then at 5 o'clock, I'll take another 10 milligrams. And every time I take the 10 milligrams, I can really feel them. And it does, I can really feel the anxiety come down and the lock in of focus. And if that's how I time my task. That is how I time my tasks. I'm not sure why the camera's shut off right there, but you know, if I'm going to do some video editing, I think that is one of the best times to do it, is right after I've taken that the 5 milligram medication right there. Yeah, they're not the 5 o'clock 10 milligram medication. That's one of the best times to do it, because it is when, you know, when I'll be able to focus the most, or the best. All right, we're coming to a fork in the road. It is a definite fork in the road. So I think this is the right way. We're out here and there is no cell phone signal. Google Maps is not working. And so, yeah, I don't know where I'm going exactly. This is definitely an adventure, and we are exploring. And I'm glad that I did not bring my van out here. This is nice to have a little bit more ground clearance. So like I was saying, when I take the bigger doses, like in the morning I can get some things done, and in the evening when I take that one at 5 o'clock, I can get some more things done. And my journey with methylphenidate has been so far, like it's been pretty much exactly a year, and I do remember how I actually did quit working in the car business. I'd taken methylphenidate a long time ago too, when my anxiety was much worse, and I took a little higher dose back then, and the anxiety never really let me see what the medication was doing back then, and I don't know that I hadn't been in therapy for as long as I had been this time around, but because the anxiety would just immediately, I do have a bit of an anxiety about medication, and the anxiety would just immediately just start, you know, telling me that the medication was going to make things worse or something like that. It wouldn't really let me get into the medication. And I think that working with a therapist and, you know, noticing when the signs of anxiety helped me out a lot to help let the medication do its job. And so I quit the car business. I started working at the furniture store. And I went from the furniture store, I didn't even work at the furniture store for a year, maybe 6 months there, I worked there. And then I started working in this solar, selling solar business. And then I was unemployed for a little bit. And that's another interesting thing, is being unemployed. I haven't been unemployed for probably like 30 years. And then so I was unemployed for a little bit. You know, and I noticed, like, here in America, we tend to really have our employment, you know, can kind of be a big part of our identity. And so, you know, not being employed and then changing employment. You know, I was a car salesman for 20 years. I was a car salesman. You know, anybody asked me, what do you do? And I'd say, oh, I sell cars, you know. And it wasn't really something I liked. Well, you know, I mean, I liked it, but I mean, if I did it for 20 years, I must have been okay at it. But, you know, there's that whole thing about a salesperson or whatever, you know, you kind of get this, you get a little bit of a bad stereotype about salespeople. And I've also always had a little bit of delusions of grandeur, maybe. I don't know, but ADHD can do that. It can definitely make you always want to do something more. It can definitely always want to make you chase novelty, like I'm doing right now. And I think the first time that I, you know, just leaving the car business, just that change was terrifying in a lot of ways, and maybe that's why it took me 20 years. I mean, the first few years in the car business was the novelty, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked it, but, you know, it just got to where, like, the last 5 years or so, that I was starting to get burnt out, and I really did need a change or a vacation. Now, I kind of got back into the car business, but it's in a totally different business, and it's a different environment, so it's a smaller shop, so it's better right now. So I definitely like where I'm at the moment. And also maybe just getting out of it for a little bit helped me to adjust with the burnout that I was feeling. And there's really no signs, but I think we just stay on the road that looks nicer here, and except for we're getting that classic dirt grass in the middle here. But anyways, you know, just keep on going with what I'm feeling. But I was able to change the car business, and I definitely noticed that, you know, I felt better with the medication. And I changed the dosages sometimes, like even lately I started taking like yesterday. I actually, because my prescription actually says to take one of the slow releases in the morning and then one in the afternoon, and I had not been doing that. I'd been kind of afraid to take the slow release because of that whole idea of not being able to control it. Like once you take the slow release, you've kind of taken it, and you know, you just have to ride it all the way out, and it's going to take longer or something. I don't know, it's not really a logical train of thought. But yeah, so I actually took one slow release at like 10:30, and then I took another one at like 2. I'm not doing that today because I'm way out here in the middle of nowhere, I guess, and I just wanted to be a little bit more normal as I am, I guess. But yeah. So yeah, that's all of my experiences with ADHD and my journey on methylphenidate. I'm not sure, you know, it didn't, you've watched the videos, you can see how I'm different. I'm definitely less anxious, but I still, the life is getting better, but you know, it wasn't like I suddenly turned around and did something instantly. It took a while even for the medication to work and to really kick in. But every day it seems like things are getting better and better, and I think that, you know, pretty soon I'm going to be a famous YouTuber. We'll just go with that. And as we crawl through the backwoods of Oregon, and this is just prime Bigfoot country. There's all these stories about Oregon, these mysterious woods. And I don't know if I'm on the right road or not still. Don't know if this road's going to get to Harlan or if it's going to dead end somewhere. It's definitely a back road, that's for sure. And Ben, if you're still with me, the cult leader. So there's an interesting story. And this is an interesting thing to talk about. There's a word, and I believe it's an English language word. No, it's probably not. But it's been incorporated into the English language about how, you know, when you look at somebody else sitting in their restaurant and you look over at some strangers and you suddenly realize that their life is just as complicated as yours. And there's a word for that, and if you know it, put it in the comments. And it's kind of interesting, like there's another word for when you think that you're the only person that's real in the world, you know, and we kind of have that simulation, like we live in a simulation theory that people talk a lot about. And if you go into a convenience store, a gas station, and you meet the person behind the counter, especially when you talk about life being a video game, it could seem like that person might be an NPC, a non-playing character. If you don't play role-playing games or video games, you might not know what I mean by that. So I'll go into it for just a little bit. I'll try to do like a 30-second or 1-minute explanation here. If you play a role-playing game, which is just basically like a story where you're a character in a world, and you have to go into like the bar or because we play role-playing games, we play Dungeons and Dragons, so naturally you're in medieval times, so you got the bar. But it's the same thing in real life. If you go into a grocery store, if you're playing a video game like Skyrim or Oblivion or those types of things, when you buy your weapons, that guy standing behind the counter in the weapon shop is not a real person. He's what they call an NPC, a non-playing character. If you were playing a role-playing game, the game master would have to be playing that guy. If you're playing a video game, then the computer is playing that person. And with AI getting better and better, that person might be able to carry on longer and longer sentences. But if you're playing a video game, that person has a very scripted life. But in real life, it's not like that. You can't even venture to pretend that the people behind the counters, you know, serving you, and if you do, then you're a very you might be a terrible person if you are treating them like they're not real people. But it can kind of come down to, you know, if we lived in a simulation, the little time you spend with them, they might not have to be real people. But it's interesting because I have met, and it's different when you live in the town, I suppose, because when you see them every day, of course, you're going to be able to see more and more of them. But when you are traveling and you just see somebody for a little bit, or when you're playing a video game and you're just going to see that person for a little bit, that's where it might seem like they're an NPC. Or if you are more into that simulation theory and you think that the computer that runs this universe does not have enough space to have every one of those people be a real person or have an in-depth life. But anyways, I met this person at the gas station, and one time he said, you know, he was going to start a cult. And so from then on, I started calling him the cult leader. And
photo storage is full.
It's pretty interesting how he's made this cult with this raccoon called Gideon. Actually, it's a raccoonipotamus. It's like half raccoon, half octopus. And, you know, it's kind of got that whole Cthulhu vibe going on because it's got tentacles and stuff like that. And I think there's just a touch of tentacle porn in there or whatever, you know, whatever, because that's cool, that's interesting stuff. It's novel. That's ADHD people like the novel stuff. We like the novelty. So it's got that going on. And it's a cool cult. You know, we always talk about how the cult's doing and stuff like that. He's made some paraphernalia. I have shown that in my other videos. He's got like a trifold pamphlet about the cult. And he also has pins about the cult, and a 3D printed Gideon. Some really cool stuff. And I think Ben is one of the most interesting and entertaining people I've ever met. So, you know, and so that's part of these things about simulation and stuff like that. We have no cell phone signal, and we are a long ways from society out here in the Oregon woods. Got nothing but the trees and this gravel road and the mystery of the forest. And it's when you get out here like this, it's no wonder that there's so many stories about Oregon's woods and the thoughts that there could be cryptids wandering around out here, ghosts and mysteries, because we're a long ways from other people. And yeah, there's no signal here. I don't know that you could even get much of a satellite because you can't see the sky very well. And as I was saying when we left, like, this is a 20-mile road from when you leave that paved road going up to Mary's Peak. So you could get 10 miles from the pavement on either side of you. And I don't even know if I've gone 10 miles yet, and I don't even know if I'm still on the right road. And we are definitely exploring that undiscovered country, which I really hope that I will return. And here comes another pothole. I wonder why they call them potholes, because they're the size of a pot. This road is getting a little bit different now. Like, I did this once before, and I thought I remembered this road being better. I don't remember what kind of vehicle I did it in back then. It might have been in my I had an old 1997 RAV4. It could have been in that vehicle. That would have been an okay vehicle for it. I haven't really needed any four-wheel drive yet. This one is all-wheel drive. That one was front-wheel drive. But I've definitely needed the ground clearance. It's really beautiful out here. And Yeah, I would wear my sunglasses, but it's just it's too hard to see out here. All right, story time. So, like I said, I used to work in the car business for 20 years, and you do get some interesting stories working in the car business. And so when COVID happened, they shut down the factories that make the cars for a little bit. And so even though less people were out buying cars, it still ended up that you had to wait a long time to buy a car. And people were paying more for them too. Some car lots were charging $10,000 over MSRP. But the car lot I worked at, for most cars, we were like $2,000-$3,000 over MSRP, and we actually were giving the customer some product for that. But anyways, there was this, and a gentleman's a funny word for it, and I'm wondering if this is where the road ends. Uh-oh. All right, well, we might not be able to go any farther. Fascinating. All right, well, for those of you who are wanting to see this road go on, we're not going farther. This is where we're stuck. So I don't know if we're gonna make it there today. We'll try a different day. Wait, we're gonna turn around here. It's like lucky we can turn around here. There's a spot to turn around. That's fascinating. Much of a spot though. If I'm on the right road or not, but it's gonna take some pictures for a little bit. And go pee. Jeez.